That brings us to this week's roundtable. Not only does Pakistan remain mired in violence, its once close relationship with America also appears to be deteriorating. For a closer look, we are joined once again by Ian Bremer, the president of Eurasia Group, and David Endelman, editor of World Policy Journal. Welcome to both of you. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Well, let's start with the mounting violence in Pakistan. We saw another mosque attack today. There have been ongoing assaults against government and military targets, the expansion of US drone attacks in the tribal areas. It seems as if the authorities have lost control.
Well, the big question is whether they ever had control, especially in those areas. Look, the biggest problem with the Pakistan military is that most of its forces, like 60% of its forces, have been concentrated on the Indian border, if you can imagine that. The Indian border is how they're expecting Indian troops to come pouring across. They need to understand that their principal challenge right now is off in the west, in the northwest, and that's where they need to start moving forces. They've started, but they aren't doing it quickly enough, in my view.
Ian, what do you think? I mean, there has been an upsurge in violence. The attacks on the mosques, the ongoing attacks against government and military installations, the expansion of drone attacks by the United States. What do you think is going on? Are the authorities losing their grip on power?
Well, they are losing their grip in part because of the military issues, in part because there's a big domestic surge politically against Isdari right now. He might not be there in another couple of months, but we do have to recognize that while they've historically been focused on India, over the last couple of months, they've really gone after a lot of the militants in the tribal provinces. And as a consequence, that's not appreciated locally in Pakistan. And there is an effort to go after the Pakistani government where it's going to hurt them. So clearly, they would like to see, militants in Pakistan would like to see these folks focusing on their traditional enemy, which of course is India.
Let's talk, I mean, I'll come to India in a second, but let's talk about President Isdari a little bit more. There have been opposition calls for him to resign over allegations of corruption. Of course, he enjoys immunity by virtue of his position as being president. But there was an arrest warrant was issued today for his interior minister. What do you think is going on internally within the politics of Pakistan? Is Isdari about to be shafted?
Well, I think it's very likely that Isdari could have a lot of political troubles. Whether he'll actually be shafted is another question. But you know, we knew going in that Isdari was corrupt. I mean, look at his history, you know, with his ex-wife. If Benazir Bhutto had gotten in, a lot of that probably would have been able to be pushed to the background. But he is really very much a lightning rod for a lot of these issues. What's really particularly frightening, I think, is the fact that he has turned over the nuclear control to the prime minister. Now, who knows what's going to happen with the entire government structure there going forward. My concern here in Pakistan is the nuclear issue rather than any other internal political structures. As the political structures impact who has their hand on the nuclear button, that's of critical importance.
Talking about Isdari, though, do you think that steps could be taken against him?
Oh, I do. I think the courts have made it very clear with the new Supreme Court ruling that they are preparing to remove immunity. That could happen with a case against him in Switzerland. It could happen more likely with cases proceeding in Pakistan. And what we'll see now is whether or not there's a lot of pressure on Isdari to go and make a deal with Nawaz Sharif that would reduce his level of control formally in the Constitution. Now, to get that deal done, Nawaz Sharif has to accept it. And there are a lot of hawks in his own party that don't want to see that happen. If a deal doesn't get done in the next couple months, I suspect Isdari is out. And of course, that's going to put more power ultimately in the hands of the Pakistani military.
And so you think that this pressure is coming from the military, or is it also coming from mainly from the political opposition parties? And if it's coming from the military, what's the subtext?
I think the pressure is coming from both, but I actually think that it's not coordinated, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah, I don't see another coup in the horizon right now, but mainly because I don't see anybody on the military side who necessarily has the political chops, if you will, to just take on everything that's going on right now. They are very much preoccupied with what's going on in the security situation in the Northwest. I think the big challenge now is how is the U.S. going to deal with this?
Let's talk about the U.S. I mean, in terms of the state of U.S.-Pakistan relations, what does it mean? I mean, now that we're seeing U.S. diplomats being harassed, I mean, the relationship seems to have gone from bad to worse.
Well,
what's going on here?
It has, and you know, I have to lay a lot of the blame on the special envoy, you know, Richard Holbrooke. Why is he not over there at this very important political juncture, either in Pakistan or in Afghanistan? Pakistan or Afghanistan are both his mandates, yet he's swanning around in New York, frankly, giving speeches and so forth. He shouldn't be. He should be there, and he should be trying his best to try to get back in whatever graces remain.
Well, right. Where is Richard Holbrooke in all of this?
David's right, but I don't think it's Holbrooke's fault. Let's be clear. I mean, Biden wasn't the one that was going over to Afghanistan either to get the deal done when the elections went badly. They sent Kerry instead. Why? Because Biden was opposed to the policy. So has Holbrooke been. Look, one of the smart things that Obama did when he became president is he said, I'm going to let the generals take over the war on terror. I'm going to reappoint Gates as Secretary of Defense. I'm going to make sure that Petraeus and all of our boys in uniform are going to be in charge. Now, that policy in Afghanistan hasn't worked very well, but he's in a position where he has to let the generals continue to move ahead with their policy, hence 30,000.
What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen with Holbrooke, though?
I think Holbrooke is in trouble, frankly. I mean, he's a very sharp guy. He's incredibly astute diplomatically, and he's losing in terms of policy. And he's now being asked to carry water for a policy he doesn't believe is going to work. You're right. It's a civil solution.
It is.
But the Obama administration, President Obama and the generals have said we're going to have largely a military solution on the ground.
You need a diplomat on the ground, though, who can make his voice heard in those countries, and Holbrooke is not the one.
All right, got to leave it there. We're out of time. Ian Bremmer, David Endelman, thank you very much for joining us.
See you.